My name is Rin Calder, and for most of my life, I believed the world was a finished map. Every coast measured, every island named, every mystery solved by someone braver, or at least more foolish than me. I was wrong. I remember the night everything changed. The storm had just ended, leaving the town soaked and silent. I was in my small workshop, surrounded by old charts and maps that smelled of mold and dust. I was sketching a coastline I'd traced 1,000 times before when I heard a knock. Soft, careful, almost afraid. When I opened the door, an old traveler stood there, a man I had never seen, but who spoke my name like he'd known me since birth. Without a word, he placed something in my hand. A compass, but not like any I had ever seen. The needle didn't point north. It spun, slowly, like it was thinking, then stopped at a direction no map recognized. "Follow it," the old man whispered, "and you'll find what the world forgot." Before I could ask anything, he turned and vanished into the fog as if he'd never been there. I should have closed my door. I should have gone to bed. But the compass kept pulling at me, tugging at something inside my chest. So I packed my bags, collected my maps, and walked toward the docks. The sea was dark, almost black, but the compass needle glowed faintly, urging me forward. By dawn, I set sail in a small wooden boat. No destination, no plan. Just a compass pointing to a place no traveler ever recorded. Hours passed, then days. The sun rose and fell, and the waves grew stranger the farther I traveled, moving in patterns that didn't match the wind. At night, I began hearing sounds. Whispers, soft, like faraway voices carried across the water. At first, I thought it was the wind. But one night, one of the whispers spoke my name. "Run." I froze. The sky was clear. The sea was calm. But the whisper came again. "Rin, come closer." My hands trembled as I held the compass. The needle spun wildly, faster than ever, then snapped to a direction and stayed still. So still it felt like the world stopped breathing. I looked up, and that's when I saw it. An island rising from the mist. Massive trees like jagged shadows. Coastlines shaped like they were carved by something ancient. And lights, tiny lights, moving across the shore like fireflies or eyes. My heart pounded. I felt the boat drifting toward it, pulled by a current I didn't understand. As I approached the shore, the whispers grew louder. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. But they weren't calling my name anymore. They were telling secrets. Secrets only I knew. Secrets I never spoke to anyone. My feet hit the sand. The air was thick, warm, alive. I stepped forward, and the island whispered my first memory. A memory I had forgotten for years. "Rin, do you remember the river? The day you almost drowned?" I froze, because I hadn't told that story to a single soul. Not ever. This island knew me, and as I took another step, I realized something terrifying. This was only the beginning. I rode deeper into the unknown, the water stretching endlessly around me. The compass glowed faintly in my hands, casting strange reflections across the boat. Shadows from the waves shifted at the edges of my vision, almost alive. Every sound of water lapping echoed loudly, as if the sea itself were listening. A chill ran down my spine when I heard soft whispers carried on the wind. At first, I thought it was my imagination, but the words seemed familiar, fragments of thoughts I couldn't place. Shapes began to emerge from the mist far ahead, hazy outlines that felt hauntingly familiar. My heart raced as I realized the compass was pulling me toward a place no map had ever touched. Every stroke of the oars felt like it stretched time, as though the world itself had slowed to watch me. Something was waiting for me, and I was both terrified and compelled to find it. Night fell, and the stars shone unnaturally bright. The water reflected them perfectly, but the reflection lagged slightly, like it was out of sync. I sat frozen in the boat, staring at my distorted reflection. The whispers grew louder, forming words I almost recognized. Names I didn't remember, places I'd never been, choices I hadn't made, or had I? Shadows flickered along the edge of my vision, disappearing whenever I turned. The compass pulsed in my hand, syncing with my heartbeat. Patterns began forming in the waves, guiding me towards something I couldn't see. Fear clawed at me, but curiosity held me in place. I felt as though I were moving through not just space, but through layers of time itself. And in that moment, I understood this journey was testing more than my courage. It was testing my very sense of reality. At dawn, Mist rose from the water like spirits drifting over a grave. The boat moved toward shapes slowly appearing in the distance. Towering trees reached out of the fog like dark hands, jagged cliffs rising impossibly from the sea. Tiny lights twinkled along the shore, like fireflies or watchful eyes. My pulse raced as I gripped the compass, feeling its warmth against my palm. Memories long buried surfaced, the river where I almost drowned, promises I forgot, faces I couldn't place. The island seemed alive, responding to my thoughts. Every ripple, every drifting mist, every flicker of light felt deliberate, as if the world itself were remembering me. I realized then, I was not approaching the island by chance. I was being called, pulled into its memory. The boat scraped against the sand, and I stepped onto the island, frozen mid-motion. The air was heavy, thick with warmth and the scent of moss and salt. Every sound was amplified, a leaf falling, a branch cracking in the distance, the whisper of water on stone. Trails of faint light rose from the ground, twisting like memories made visible. Each step echoed through my mind, stirring fragments I couldn't name. I realized the island existed not just in space, but in time itself, holding pieces of every choice I had ever made, and some I hadn't. Shadows deepened, lights pulsed, and an impossible mixture of wonder and dread gripped me. The whispers were no longer words. They were revelations, gently revealing truths I wasn't ready to face. The boat scraped against the sand, and I stepped onto the island, frozen mid-motion. The air was heavy, thick with warmth and the scent of moss and salt. Every sound was amplified, a leaf falling, a branch cracking in the distance, the whisper of water on stone. Trails of faint light rose from the ground, twisting like memories made visible. Each step echoed through my mind, stirring fragments I couldn't name. I realized the island existed not just in space, but in time itself, holding pieces of every choice I had ever made, and some I hadn't. Shadows deepened, lights pulsed, and an impossible mixture of wonder and dread gripped me. The whispers were no longer words. They were revelations, gently revealing truths I wasn't ready to face. The trees arched overhead like cathedral ceilings, massive and unyielding. Strange markings glowed faintly along the bark, symbols I didn't understand but that evoked memories I couldn't place. The whispers formed riddles in my mind, teasing me, warning me. Each step I took resonated beneath me, awakening something hidden in the island. I paused by a stream, staring at my reflection. It looked subtly different, a version of me from a life I didn't know I had. My heartbeat quickened. The island responded to my thoughts, my fears, my presence. Awe and terror battled inside me. I realized that deeper in the mist, something waited, a truth I could not yet comprehend. I moved cautiously along the path, feeling the air hum with energy. Mist coiled around the roots like living things, and the whispers spoke fragments of sentences. Remember, you chose, you left, you return. Each word pulled at buried memories. Shadows shifted at the edges of my vision, but when I turned, nothing remained. The compass pulsed, guiding me silently. I felt compelled forward, though a part of me screamed to stop. Every step brought me closer to a center I couldn't see, yet I knew it existed. I understood, in the deepest part of me, that this island was alive, a mirror of my choices, my fears, my past. And I was both intruder and participant. The forest opened to a clearing glowing faintly from the ground itself. The whispers overlapped, forming voices I knew, faces I remembered but could not name. At the edge of the mist, a figure appeared, only to vanish when I approached. The compass quivered erratically, pointing toward a place invisible to my eyes. I felt the weight of being watched, the island knowing my every move. Light particles floated, twisting in patterns that seemed deliberate. I realized I was moving through something beyond space, a place where my past and present converged. The island wasn't just observing me, it was testing me, preparing me for what lay ahead. Deeper into the forest, the trees towered impossibly high, their branches twisting upward like ancient guardians watching my every step. The air grew heavier as I walked, thick with mist that clung to my skin like cold breath. Flickers of light drifted between the branches, moving with an unsettling intelligence, casting long, wavering patterns across the ground. Shadows stretched and recoiled as if reacting to my presence. I slowed, listening. Faint laughter drifted through the trees, soft, distant, impossibly familiar. Then voices. Not conversations I recognized, but echoes of moments that might have happened in another life, or perhaps moments I had forgotten completely. They felt real, painfully real, as though the forest itself remembered them for me. Beneath my feet, the earth shifted subtly, as if adjusting itself to my weight, reminding me once again that the island wasn't just alive, it was aware. I paused to steady my breath, feeling my heartbeat echo back through the ground. I realized I was traversing more than land. Every step felt like walking deeper into my own mind, retracing paths I didn't know existed. The forest around me pulsed softly, responding to thoughts I hadn't spoken aloud. The whispers returned, no longer scattered or fragmented, but forming clear, deliberate sentences. You are both traveler and destination. You cannot escape yourself. The words slid through me like cold water, chilling and undeniable. A shiver ran down my spine, not from fear alone, but from recognition. I understood then that the island demanded something more from me than simple curiosity or courage. It wanted truth, the truth I had long avoided. Every choice, every fear, every memory I tried to bury was rising to the surface again, waiting to be acknowledged. The path ahead narrowed until it felt like a tight corridor carved by time itself. Jagged cliffs rose on both sides, tall and unforgiving, their surfaces etched with lines that looked almost like symbols. The air grew colder as I walked, and the mist thickened around me, swirling in slow, deliberate motions. It wasn't just fog, it glowed faintly, pulsing with a soft, otherworldly light, as though it carried an unseen energy drifting through it. I could feel it brushing against my skin, testing me, recognizing me. The island was watching, waiting. The whispers that had followed me through the forest shifted, merging into a single haunting voice that echoed between the cliffs. Follow, or be forgotten. The words reverberated in the stone, lingering in the air long after the voice faded. My pulse quickened. I approached a small pool reflecting the faint glow of the mist, and when I looked down, my breath caught in my throat. My reflection wasn't stable. It rippled between versions of me. Older, younger, someone unfamiliar, someone I might have become in another life. Each face stared back with a different expression, yet they all felt undeniably mine. The compass in my hand pulsed with strange intensity, as if urging me forward with a rhythm that matched my heartbeat. The forest behind me fell silent, unnaturally silent, the kind that presses against your ears and makes you aware of every breath you take. The only sound was a gentle hum rising from the island itself, low and resonant, like it was alive and speaking without words. I felt it then, a shift in the air, a thinning between what was real and what was remembered. I knew I was close to the island's core, the place where all paths converged and the truth refused to stay hidden. A sense of calm washed over me, mingling with a growing dread, as though I stood on the edge of a revelation too heavy to bear. Whatever waited ahead, I could not turn back now. Stepped into the clearing and froze. At the center stood an enormous tree, towering higher than anything I had seen on the island. Its trunk was wide and ancient, and its roots spread across the ground like veins, vibrating against my skin as if the island itself were breathing around me. The whispers that had followed me through the forest shifted, becoming clearer, more deliberate. They formed sentences shaped from my own past. You chose to leave. You chose to forget. Now you will remember. Hearing those words spoken back to me made the ground feel unsteady beneath my feet. It wasn't just a voice. It felt like the island was confronting me directly. Light particles drifted down from the branches overhead, glowing gently as they floated through the air. When they touched the bark, strange symbols shimmered into view, etched into the surface like old memories resurfacing after years of being buried. I didn't recognize them, yet they felt familiar in a way that made my chest tighten. The compass in my hand vibrated sharply, its needle locked on the base of the tree. The glow it emitted grew stronger, matching the steady pulse I felt in my fingers. I couldn't move. I could only stare. The tree felt aware, not alive in the normal sense, but sentient, watching me the same way the island seemed to from the moment I arrived. Then memories surged through me, rising fast, and uninvited. Promises I let fade. Choices made out of fear. Moments I tried to bury deep enough to never face again. They came back with startling clarity, each tied to the hum in the air, each refusing to be ignored. And in that moment, I understood. The island wasn't guessing who I was. It wasn't discovering me. It already knew me. It remembered everything I ever tried to hide. And with the compass glowing in my hand and the tree standing like a witness to my entire life, I realized I had no choice left but to face what I had tried so long to forget. I stood frozen before the enormous tree, feeling its energy pulse through the ground like a slow, steady heartbeat. The vibration traveled up through my feet, into my legs, and settled deep in my chest. Every fiber of my being felt tied to it, as though the island itself had reached out and wrapped me in its memory. The air around me shifted, warm then cold, almost like it was breathing with me. I felt watched, recognized, exposed. The whispers that had followed me since the shore grew clearer, no longer scattered fragments. They were forming sentences now, sentences taken directly from my own life. I heard choices I had made, paths I had ignored, moments I believed time had erased. Hearing them spoken aloud made my stomach tighten. It was like listening to a version of myself I had abandoned long ago. The compass in my hand vibrated softly, a constant reminder that I was meant to be here. Its glow flickered in sync with the subtle pulse of the tree, urging me forward even as fear held my feet in place. My breaths came slow and deliberate, each inhale heavy with the weight of recognition. I wasn't just standing before a tree. I was standing before a witness, one that had been collecting my memories long before I ever set foot on the island. I realized then that this towering structure wasn't simply part of the landscape. It was the heart of the island, alive in a way I couldn't fully understand. Its roots stretched out like veins, carrying echoes of every secret, every forgotten memory, every decision I had ever made. And as I stared up at its massive trunk, I felt an unsettling truth settle over me. It knew me. Not the version I showed the world, not the version I pretended to be, but the version I tried hardest to forget. Somehow, impossibly, the island knew me more intimately than I knew myself. As I took a hesitant step closer, the air around me thickened instantly, growing heavy and dense, as if I had crossed an invisible threshold. The space shimmered faintly, bending light in slow, wavering pulses. The ground beneath my feet responded with a gentle throb, a soft and steady rhythm that felt disturbingly like a heartbeat. It was as if the island itself was alive beneath me, reacting to every movement, every breath I took. Light particles drifted lazily through the air, floating with an almost deliberate grace. They illuminated the massive roots of the tree, revealing symbols carved deep into the bark, symbols that looked ancient, yet strangely familiar. My eyes traced them instinctively, and something inside me stirred, a buried recognition I couldn't explain. My mind swirled with half-remembered events, fragments of moments I thought I had long forgotten. I saw the river where I had almost drowned, the cold rush of water dragging me under. I saw a promise I had broken, a promise that still echoed with regret. I even saw a face, blurry, impossible to place, yet hauntingly familiar. Each memory left me feeling more exposed, stripped of the protective walls I had built around myself. It was as though the island was peeling back the layers of my mind, pulling buried truths to the surface whether I wanted them or not. My heartbeat quickened, matching the pulsing ground beneath me. Then the whispers shifted, merging into a single, clear voice that cut through the air with calm authority. "You cannot hide. You must remember." The words resonated through me, vibrating in my ribs, settling deep in my mind. They weren't a threat. They were a command, a truth I could no longer ignore. In that moment, I understood. The island wasn't trying to confuse me or frighten me. It was teaching me, guiding me, forcing me to confront the truths I had spent my entire life avoiding. And no matter how much I wanted to run, I knew there was no turning back now. I had to face what? I hesitated, rooted to the spot, uncertain whether I should take another step forward or turn back into the shadows of the forest. My breath wavered. Part of me wanted to retreat, to escape the overwhelming presence that pressed against my mind, but another part felt an undeniable pull deeper into the clearing. The compass in my hand pulsed again, stronger this time, its faint glow syncing with the throb of the ground beneath my feet. It was urging me, insisting that forward was the only path left. The lights drifting around me shifted, moving with an eerie, deliberate grace, almost like living beings guiding my steps. They drifted in soft spirals, creating narrow pathways of illumination that pointed toward the tree. I felt surrounded, not trapped, but gently steered toward the truth I had avoided for so long. Then I noticed them, faint silhouettes materializing in the mist. Echoes of myself, not reflections, not illusions, but versions of me that existed just at the edge of recognition. One looked older, worn by choices I had not yet made. Another seemed younger, carrying hope I had long since forgotten. Others were different still, alternate outcomes, alternate lives, possibilities that had split somewhere in the quiet spaces between decisions. Each echo moved without sound, yet their whispers filled the air. Face it, you are the reason this island remembers. The words hit me with quiet force, as if spoken by all of them at once. My pulse quickened, loud in my ears. A wave of fear washed through me, chased immediately by awe and a strange, rising exhilaration. I began to understand. This journey was no longer just about uncovering the island's mysteries. It wasn't simply exploration. It was confrontation. It was a reckoning with the parts of myself I had tried to bury, ignore, or forget. The island wasn't just showing me the past. It was showing me everything I had been, everything I could become, and everything I still tried to run from. And now, it refused to. The island's whispers rose around me, overlapping, weaving into each other until they formed a haunting chorus, familiar, intimate, unmistakably my own. It felt as if every memory I had ever buried had gathered in the air, speaking back to me with a voice I could not run from. The sound wasn't loud, but it carried a weight that pressed against my chest, urging me to listen. Shapes flickered at the edge of my vision, fragments of my past drifting like reflections across a dark, rippling pool. I saw moments I barely remembered, choices I had made without thinking, decisions that had shaped me even when I believed they didn't matter. Small things, forgotten things, painful things. They floated before my eyes like fragile shards, each one trembling with the life I had once lived. My hands shook as I tightened my grip on the compass. It pulsed steadily, a quiet heartbeat of its own, syncing with mine until I couldn't tell which rhythm belonged to which. I realized then that the compass wasn't guiding me through the island. It was guiding me through myself. The air around me thickened with memory, my memory, woven into every leaf, every shadow, every breath I took. The island seemed to breathe with me, learning from me, reflecting me. It wasn't just a place I had stumbled upon. It was a mirror, a living archive, a space where every version of me was preserved, waiting to be acknowledged. The more I focused, the clearer the truth became. There was no escaping any of it. The island knew who I was. It remembered every path I took and every path I avoided. And now it held me in the center of its vast, unending recollection. I wasn't just walking through the island. I was walking through the story of my own existence. And in that moment, I understood the terrifying truth. I was both prisoner and witness, observer and participant, trapped inside a memory that had finally grown too large, too loud, too impossible to ignore. I took another step forward, slow and unsteady, feeling the ground shift beneath my feet as if it were something living, breathing, listening, responding. The pulse beneath the soil matched my heartbeat, rising and falling in quiet waves. It felt like the island was aware of every movement I made. The massive roots of the ancient tree stretched outward, their faint glow coursing through the earth like veins of light, reaching toward me as though they recognized me. Then the whispers returned, soft at first, then clearer, more deliberate. They merged into a single sentence that rang through the clearing with unmistakable clarity. To know yourself, you must face what you have hidden. The words echoed in my chest, unsettling and painfully true. I felt exposed, as if something inside me had been cracked open. Fragments of memories surged without warning, colliding and overlapping. A friend I once betrayed, a promise I failed to keep, a dream I abandoned because fear outweighed desire. Faces I remembered only in fragments, places I had pushed out of my mind, choices I thought were buried for good. They all rose at once, sharp and unfiltered. My breath hitched, the weight of it all pressing hard against me. The tree's glow intensified, casting long shadows across the clearing. I looked down and saw my own shadow stretching unnaturally far, elongated across the ground like it was being pulled toward the tree. For a moment, it merged with the faint silhouettes around me, echoes of myself in different forms, outcomes, and timelines I could barely comprehend. Each echo stared back at me without eyes, without expression, but somehow full of meaning. They were reminders, silent but heavy, of every version of me the island had stored away. The realization struck me with quiet force. The island remembered everything. Not just the parts one showed the world, but the parts one buried, avoided, denied. And now it wanted me to face all of it. I stood at the base of the enormous tree, its presence pressing against my chest as if it were aware of every heartbeat, every thought, every hidden fear. The air around me was thick and warm, vibrating faintly with energy, and the whispers that had followed me since the forest softened into a gentle hum. Yet even in their softness, each word cut deeper than any voice I had ever heard. "Remember," they said, "face yourself." The words wrapped around me, gentle but insistent, leaving no space to ignore them. My memories surged forward in fragments, disjointed yet vivid. I saw moments I had avoided thinking about, faces I had tried to forget, decisions made in fear, paths I had chosen hastily and later regretted. Each fragment struck me like a flash of cold light, illuminating corners of my mind I had spent years trying to keep dark. I shivered, overwhelmed by the sheer weight of it all. The compass in my hand pulsed steadily, a rhythmic beacon guiding me forward, but toward what I could not yet understand. Every vibration felt like a thread pulling me deeper into the heart of the tree, deeper into the island, deeper into myself. I realized then that my journey here had never been only about exploring the island. Each step I had taken had been both a physical movement and a mental descent, a slow unraveling of who I thought I was versus who I truly was. The island revealed pieces of myself one memory at a time, fragments that had been stored away, hidden even from me. And with each revelation, I felt the weight of truth pressing in, truths I had spent my life running from, hiding from, denying. But standing there, rooted to the ground by the energy of the tree and the pull of the compass, I understood there was no escape. I had to face it all. The island was not just a place. It was a reckoning. I reached out to touch one of the glowing roots, and the instant my fingers brushed against its surface, a shiver ran through me, crawling up my arms and settling deep in my chest. Light pulsed along the root beneath my touch, as though it were alive, as though it recognized me. Images flickered before my eyes, rivers I had swum in long ago, forests I had wandered, faces I recognized but could not name, echoes of people I might have known in another life. Each image struck me with a strange clarity, pulling memories from the hidden corners of my mind. The whispers grew louder, weaving together into a single, coherent voice, my own voice, yet distorted, resonant with authority. "You created this, and now you must understand it." The words reverberated in my skull and chest, aligning with the pulsing of my heartbeat. I felt the compass in my hand grow warmer, its glow intensifying, pulsing in perfect sync with me, like a tether linking me to the island's core. Everything around me seemed alive in a new way. The mist twisted gently, forming fleeting shapes that shimmered and disappeared. Light and shadow danced across the ground and roots, reflecting fragments of myself I hadn't recognized before. Each movement of the air, each ripple across the mist, carried meaning I couldn't yet fully interpret, yet instinctively understood. It was as if the island itself had become memory made physical, holding every forgotten thought, every suppressed fear, every buried piece of my being. I realized then that I was no longer in a mere forest clearing. The boundaries between reality and memory had dissolved. I stood in a place where past, present, and the hidden parts of me converged. The island wasn't just alive. It was a mirror, a repository, a reflection of all I had tried to ignore. And as I stood there, shivering beneath the glow of the roots, I understood one undeniable truth. There was no escape from what I had buried. Only understanding awaited me now. I stepped forward carefully, My gaze locked on the glowing canopy above, where light filtered through the thick leaves in shifting patterns that seemed almost alive. The air itself felt heavier here, vibrating faintly against my skin as if the island were aware of every movement I made. Each step I took carried a weight, a subtle resistance, like the land itself was guiding me, testing me, pulling me towards some unseen center. Small particles of light floated lazily through the mist, drifting in spirals and loops. They moved deliberately, as though carrying messages I could not yet read, forming fleeting patterns that hinted at meaning just beyond comprehension. My mind raced, overwhelmed by fragments of memory colliding all at once. I saw a childhood promise I had made and forgotten, a betrayal that had haunted me for years, a fear I had long suppressed. Each memory struck with clarity, sharp and unavoidable, yet somehow necessary. The compass in my hand pulsed faintly, but with a rhythm I could feel in my chest. It was more than guidance, it was insistence. With every step, the canopy above shimmered, the roots beneath seemed to pulse with life, and the mist wove itself around me like a living thread, connecting every fragment of memory I had tried to ignore. And then it became clear. I had reached the heart of the island, a place where past, present, and future intertwined, a space that existed outside of time itself. Every choice, every hidden fear, every regret I had tried to bury was here, pressed against me by the very essence of the land. There was no turning back. The island was no longer a place to explore, it was a place demanding reckoning. I had to face myself fully, in every truth the island held, or remain trapped within it forever. I froze mid-step, a chill running through me as I sensed a presence I could not see. The air itself seemed to thicken, holding me in place, pressing softly against my skin. The whispers around me shifted, merging into a clarity I hadn't experienced before. They spoke of events I had tried to bury, failures I had pretended never happened, losses I had numbed myself against, regrets I had locked away, and choices made hastily that had rippled through my life in ways I barely understood. Each word struck me with quiet intensity, cutting deeper than anything I could have anticipated. The compass in my hand glowed steadily, its light unwavering as it pointed toward a direction deeper within the sprawling roots. I felt its pull in my chest, in my pulse, as if it were syncing with the rhythm of the island itself. Every beat of my heart seemed amplified, echoing in my ears, vibrating through every fiber of my being. I realized I was not just standing before a tree or walking through a forest. I was standing within a space that responded to me, that remembered me, that demanded my attention. Anticipation and fear collided inside me, creating a tension I could feel in my muscles, in my breath, in the tremor of my hands. And in that moment of stillness, clarity broke through. This journey had never been about discovering the island. It had been about discovering myself. The island had held a mirror to every version of me, every hidden choice, every path I had taken, and every path I had ignored. It held me accountable for who I was, who I had been, and who I might yet become. There was no escape here, no retreat, no distraction, no evasion. Only understanding, a deep, unavoidable recognition of the self the island refused to let me hide from. And I knew, with quiet certainty, that I had no choice but to see it all. I stepped closer to the heart of the tree, each movement deliberate, as if the ground itself were measuring my intent. The air around me shimmered faintly, wavy and alive, as though charged with energy I could feel brushing against my skin. The mist curled around my legs and drifted past my face, carrying a faint whisper that seemed to come from everywhere at once. And then I heard it, my own voice, soft, distorted, yet undeniably mine. You cannot hide from yourself. The word struck me, resonating through my chest like a warning and a revelation at once. Immediately, memories I had buried for years surged forward. They surfaced like shadows cast by flickering light, intangible yet vivid, circling around me with quiet insistence. Faces I could barely recall, promises I had broken, choices I had regretted, moments of fear and shame, all emerged, pressing against the edges of my mind. The compass in my hand pulsed brighter, a steady glow that seemed to urge me forward, matching the quickening rhythm of my heart. I felt the energy of the island flow through me, a current connecting my present self to every version I had ever been, every life I might have lived, every possibility I had abandoned or overlooked. The revelation hit me with a force that made my knees tremble. The island was not simply alive. It was me, and I was it. Every memory, every choice, every secret I thought I had buried was etched into its being. Every hidden fragment of myself had been preserved here, waiting for me to recognize it. I took a shuddering breath, feeling the weight of all that truth pressing against me. And in that instant, I knew there was no turning back. I had arrived at the point of reckoning, and the island demanded that I confront everything I had tried to hide, everything I had ever been, everything I could become. I took a deep breath, letting the cool, vibrating air of the clearing fill my lungs. My hands gripped the compass tightly, feeling its warmth pulse steadily against my palms. Around me, the energy of the island thrummed like a living heartbeat, brushing against my skin and seeping into my bones. Memories and emotions swirled together, colliding and intertwining. Triumphs I had cherished, mistakes I had tried to forget, fears I had buried, and fleeting joys that had slipped silently through the years. The whispers returned, fragmented at first, then clearer, repeating phrases I recognized but couldn't place. Echoes of my own thoughts, regrets, and long-forgotten promises. They weren't accusatory, not exactly. They were a guide, nudging me forward through the fog of my mind. I realized then that every step I had taken since leaving the boat had been more than physical movement. It had been a journey inward, a confrontation with the parts of myself I had avoided for too long. Every flicker of light, every shadow cast by the roots, every subtle ripple in the mist was a reflection of me, a reminder that I could not escape who I was. And yet, for the first time, that reminder felt different. It wasn't just exposure or punishment. The island wasn't testing me to break me. It was testing me to help me understand, to guide me toward acknowledgement of every hidden, neglected, and even shameful fragment of myself. I felt a strange calm settle over me, mingling with awe and fear, as though the island were letting me glimpse the totality of who I was and who I could become. The pulse of the compass, the hum of the air, the shimmer of light around me, all of it was a quiet insistence. I could not hide. I could not run. But perhaps, for the first time, I could accept. Perhaps, finally, I could see myself clearly without flinching. The heart of the island seemed to breathe around me, a slow, steady rhythm that I could feel deep in my chest, echoing with every heartbeat. The air itself vibrated with energy, thick and almost tangible, pressing softly against my skin. The whispers that had haunted me throughout my journey shifted again, merging into clear, coherent sentences that I could finally understand. You left, you ran. You hid, now face it. The words wrapped around me, soft but insistent, carrying the weight of my past like a hand gripping my mind. Memories surged unbidden, vivid and unrelenting. I remembered the river where I had almost drowned, the suffocating panic of the water dragging me under, the desperate grasp for something solid. I recalled promises I had broken, words I had spoken carelessly that had rippled outward, leaving consequences I could not undo. Faces of friends I had lost drifted into view, blurred at first, then sharp, accusing and familiar at once. Each memory struck with pain, yet brought clarity, illuminating truths I had refused to see. The compass in my hand glowed brighter with every step I took, its light unwavering as it pointed me toward a center I could sense but not yet see. The pull of the island was undeniable, guiding me forward, threading through my own pulse and sinking with my breath. I realized then that this place was far more than a collection of trees, mist, and roots. It held not just my memories, but my truths, the ones I had buried, ignored, or denied even to myself. It demanded I confront them fully. I felt the weight of all I had tried to forget pressing in, mingled with the steady rhythm of the island's heartbeat. Every fiber of my being hummed with anticipation, fear, and reluctant recognition. I understood, with an almost physical certainty, that the island was a reflection of me, holding all that I had hidden, and that the journey I had taken to reach this point was the journey I had always needed, a confrontation with my own self. I walked deeper into the glowing clearing, each step slow, deliberate, as though the ground itself were alive beneath my feet. The air throbbed softly, vibrating with life, brushing against my skin like the faint heartbeat of something ancient. The roots of the massive tree sprawled across the earth, twisting and curling like veins, connecting me to something vast, something timeless. Every pulse of energy seemed to thread through me, linking my presence to the history of this place. Light particles drifted lazily through the mist, glimmering and twisting as they floated around me. They illuminated fragments of my past, fleeting but sharp, images of who I had been, who I could have been, and the possibilities of who I might still become. Faces, promises, failures, and long-buried moments flickered before my eyes, each one demanding acknowledgement. The whispers that had accompanied me through the island now formed deliberate sentences, urging me forward, soft yet commanding. Remember, understand, accept. I realized then that the island was showing me more than just memories. Each flicker of light, each shadow cast by the roots, reflected parts of myself I had hidden, suppressed, or denied. The clearing was a mirror, a convergence of memory and reality, and I could feel that the truth I had evaded all my life was now unavoidable. The pull of the tree, the glow of the compass, the rhythm of the earth, all were urging me toward understanding. I had arrived at a place where nothing remained separate. The island, my memories, my choices, and even my fears had fused into a single, undeniable presence. There was no hiding, no turning back. I was here. I was present. And I had no choice but to confront everything I had tried to forget, everything I had been running from, and everything I still had the power to accept. I stood at the center of the clearing, eyes locked on the enormous tree, its towering trunk stretching upward into the glowing canopy above. The air around me vibrated faintly, carrying a hum that resonated deep in my chest, syncing with my own heartbeat. In my hand, the compass pulsed steadily, a gentle yet insistent rhythm that seemed to mark the passage of time and the gravity of the moment. Every pulse reminded me that I had arrived where the island wanted me, not as a wanderer, but as someone ready to confront myself. Memories surged forward in relentless waves. Faces I had forgotten emerged from the haze of time. Moments I thought I had escaped, long-buried choices, and paths I had avoided all came rushing back with vivid clarity. The past collided with the present, layering over every thought, every emotion, every heartbeat. I felt my entire being converge in that instant, as though the island had gathered every fragment of me and held it up for acknowledgement. The whispers, once scattered and subtle, now coalesced into a single, commanding sentence, echoing in my mind with quiet insistence. You cannot run. You must remember to move forward. The words struck me not as a threat, but as a guide, a revelation of the truth I had been evading. My heartbeat aligned perfectly with the pulse of the island, a connection that made me feel both vulnerable and alive. And then I understood. Understanding myself fully, every fear, every regret, every hidden joy, was the key. The key to knowing why I had been drawn here, why the compass had led me across this living, breathing labyrinth, and why the island had preserved every memory and choice I had tried to ignore. In that moment, I embraced the journey that had begun the night I found the compass. I was ready to face the entirety of myself and the truth of this place, finally moving forward with clarity and acceptance. I reached out to touch the roots of the enormous tree, and the instant my fingers made contact, a surge of energy coursed through me, traveling up my arms and settling deep in my chest. The vibrations were subtle but undeniable, like the pulse of the island itself flowing into my body. The whispers that had followed me since I arrived were no longer distant. They had merged into my own voice, speaking from within. They recounted every hidden fear, every regret I had tried to bury, every act of courage I had forgotten, and every moment I had denied. Around me, the light shifted and danced in ways that seemed deliberate, revealing versions of myself I had never fully recognized. The child I had been, wide-eyed and uncertain. The man I had become, cautious and guarded. And the possibilities of who I might yet be, waiting patiently in the shadows of time. Each version shimmered briefly, then merged into the glow of the roots, weaving my existence into the heartbeat of the island itself. I felt past, present, and future converging into a single, unbroken thread of experience. Every memory, every emotion, every choice intertwined with the pulse of the tree and the rhythm of the mist. I realized with sudden clarity that this place had not just existed around me. It had been waiting for me, shaping itself to hold the totality of who I was, who I had been, and who I might become. The compass in my hand pulsed in harmony with my own heartbeat, a quiet affirmation that I belonged here. The realization struck me fully. I was not merely a visitor in this living, breathing island. I was part of it, inseparable from its essence. And in turn, the island was part of me, reflecting everything I had tried to hide and every truth I had long resisted. This understanding settled in my chest like weight and liberation at once. I was home, yet challenged, held yet accountable, completely, undeniably a part of this place and of myself. I took my final step toward the heart of the enormous tree, feeling the ground pulse beneath me with a rhythm that matched my own heartbeat. The compass in my hand glowed intensely, brighter than ever, as if it recognized something I now understood deep within myself. The whispers that had guided, haunted, and challenged me faded gradually into a calm, steady hum, a gentle acknowledgement of the journey I had taken. The mist that had cloaked the clearing for so long parted slightly, revealing the full expanse of the island, endless, timeless, alive, and aware. In that moment, clarity washed over me. I realized that I had arrived not at a physical destination, but at the center of myself. Every fear I had tried to ignore, every memory I had hidden, every choice I had made, all had led me here. The pulse of the island, the glow of the compass, the lingering whispers, and the drifting light particles were all extensions of my own essence, woven into the fabric of this place. I felt both impossibly small and infinitely vast, simultaneously lost and found. The island had not been a test, nor a trap. It had been a mirror, a living archive of everything I had been and everything I might yet become. It had forced me to confront my hidden truths, and in doing so, it had given me understanding and clarity I had long sought. I knew, with quiet certainty, that my journey was far from over, but it was no longer outward, no longer about exploring land. It was inward, a path into the core of who I truly was. And as I stood there, breathing in the gentle hum of the island, I understood its final lesson. The island would never forget me. Not because it could, but because I had finally remembered myself, and in that remembrance, I was whole.